so Elvis Costello and the Attractions, this year's model, comes in at number 79 in the 1970s on Best Ever Albums, number 4 in 1978, and number 304 of all time. It is Elvis Costello's highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, and I think that covers his album with the Attractions, his albums by himself, and also with the Imposters, probably, because he had another band later on that was the Imposters. This album also made Rolling Stone's list at number 121 of all time. So the album was recorded in late 1977, early 1978, and released on March 17th, 1978. It's Costello's second studio album. And so a little history on Elvis Costello. He was born Declan Patrick McManus on August 25th, 1954. And despite popular opinions on this podcast, he's actually not American. He was born in London, and he's very much British. So yes. British that he was actually awarded in 2019. He was appointed, as an Officer of the Order of the British Empire, also known as OBE.
Yeah.
So he's very much British.
Good for him.
Yeah. His father was a jazz trumpeter and also performed as a solo cabaret act. And Costello formed his first group at the age of 16 as a folk duo called Rusty. He attended Francis Xavier's College in Liverpool, and he held several jobs after graduation, but he did move to London in 1974 and started a band called Flip City, which he played in for a couple of years. He wrote songs and then started seeking out a solo recording contract. And he was signed in 1976 to a record company called Stiff Records after they heard one of his demo tapes. He had been calling himself at the time D.P. Costello, and he gets Costello from his father, who used that as a stage name. His stage name was actually Day Costello. But his Elvis Costello's manager, Jake Riviera, suggested that he change his name to Elvis after Elvis Presley, thought that it sounded better.
Riviera. That's a name for you right there.
Yep, so. Riviera. And so that's gambler. And that's how he got
Tiger. Somebody at Tiger King's it's Jake Riviera.
Jake Riviera. Yeah. And that's how he got the name Elvis Costello. The first single that he had was Less Than Zero, and it was released in March 1977. And 4 months after that, the first album was released, My Aim Is True, which was something we covered several weeks ago in a Cold Listen Hot Take. This record sold modestly well. It hit about number 14 in the UK and also made the top 40 in the US, although the singles did fail to chart. So a few months later, Costello signs with Columbia Records, and he decides that he wants to get a new backing band. If you guys remember, he did have a backing band for his first album, My Aim Is True. Do you remember the name of that band?
I do not.
John, I thought John would have remembered this. They were called Clover.
Clover, that's right.
And certain members of Clover went on to play with other bands, including Huey Lewis and the News and the Doobie Brothers.
That's right. You brought that up. Yeah.
Yep. So he forms the Attractions in 1977, which includes Steve Neve on piano.
Steve Neve.
Steve Neve. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's Nieve. Neve,
Neve, or Naive, but I got it together.
Yeah, there you go.
Either Steve Neve or Steve Naive would both be awesome, so it's probably neither of those.
Yeah. Exactly. And then two guys with last names Thomas, although they are not related. There's Bruce Thomas on the bass and Pete Thomas on the drums.
Not to be confused with the Thompson twins, who were another set of two right there.
Oh, the Thomas. Thomas,
aren't they Australian, though?
I know. I'm just saying, yeah.
That's right. So Elvis Costello and the Attractions, they go on to play Saturday Night Live on December 17th, 1977. They were actually subbing in for this.
He's banned, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay, yes. I was going to get to that, John.
Okay, sorry about that. Yep.
Give me a second here.
Sorry, man.
So they play on December 17th, 1977, subbing in for the Sex Pistols, who were changed at the last minute. I thought it was going to be because of some crazy antics, like they got arrested or something, but no, it's just something boring about their visas not working out or something, so they couldn't come to play. So, he's scheduled to play Less Than Zero, and that's the second song that they were scheduled to play. And they start playing it, and about 10 seconds into it, they stop playing, and then he starts playing Radio Radio, which is the last track on this album.
Right.
It contains controversial lyrics about commercialization of the airways, and Lorne Michaels didn't appreciate this, and he did get banned from Saturday Night Live until 1989 when he was reinstated.
Okay.
You have to love Lorne Michaels because, like, on one hand, he wants to be like counterculture guy. On the other hand, when somebody does something like legitimately counterculture, he's like, "Wait a second, don't interrupt my counterculture with your counterculture." So
Exactly. Yeah.
we'll cover the Replacements eventually, and they have another awesome getting banned from Saturday Night Live.
And we don't have to go over
yeah.
the reasons why, but I found some of the other acts that were banned from Saturday Night Live, and the Replacements were one of them.
Right,
Fear
a
is
punk
on
band
there,
that
yes.
John Travolta put on. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not John Travolta, John Belushi. Excuse me. Yep.
Okay, yep. So they were on that list. As also Cypress Hill is banned. Rage Against the Machine.
Yep, because they hung the upside down flags, right?
Yep.
Because Steve Forbes was the I read that
John
book.
knowing his SNL trivia. Yeah.
Is
I read that
O'Connor
book
banned?
live.
It seemed like she would be banned.
I read they actually semi-supported her on that, by
Oh,
the way.
wow,
interestingly enough, but
Wait, who was that, Josh?
Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah, but she did get banned.
Yeah.
She was banned. Yeah.
I said semi.
Yeah.
By the way, can I just go ahead right there? She was right, by the way, too. So I'd just like to point that out. So I'd just like to say that for the record. Everything she said ended up being true. So
Yeah.
anyway, not to get too controversial. But,
No.
Yeah.
Also, Frank Zappa got banned from Saturday Night Live.
Wow. That's a good list of good bands. Once we listed.
Yeah.
Like I said, and all
performers.
of them are like iconoclasts. You know what I mean? So it's just funny that we're so edgy, except And
But Costello did get, he was invited back in 1989.
You have to play by our rules.
Since. Yeah. So I also like this fact. So the cover of this record, this year's model, it features an Costello glaring from behind a camera. And so I'm going to read a little quote here from the photographer by the name of Chris Gabrin, excuse me. So he recalls during the photo shoot, quote, "The concept of him behind a camera for the sleeve of this year's model had already been chosen, so I decided to equip Elvis with exactly the same tripod and camera as I was using to create a mirror for him. Alongside a powerful stereo, I kept a large record collection at my Camden studio, and artists would choose music they enjoyed or were interested in for their sessions. Just as we were about to start shooting, Elvis asked me if I had Hotel California by the Eagles, and could I play it? I was puzzled by his choice until he told me that he loathed the record, but wanted to look really pissed off and angry in the shots. We played the record several times during the sessions, and whilst I directed him, I was also aware of his copying some of my own actions as I took the photographs. So yeah, he looks angry in that photo because he's listening to the Eagles' Hotel California.
There you go.
Nice.
Perfect. Great.
He
story.
later tried to dispute that on Howard Stern by saying, I think that's not true because the Eagles Hotel California wasn't out at that time, which is not correct. It was very much out by a while.
That's a very specific story by the photographer too.
Nice try, Elvis. So yeah, that's all I have. There's not a whole lot of history with this record, but it's definitely considered Elvis Costello's crowning achievement, if you will. I have a few facts after the fact because this is the only time we're covering Costello in a proper episode. So let's start with Josh. What do you think of this year's model?
Oh, this is a great album, and I don't know if it's better than the first album yet. I need to listen to it more, but I think these are both, the 1 and 2, My Aim Is True, and this one are both like stellar things. What my main takeaway with him is that he seems to incorporate kind of the reggae ska sound that was, from all the West Indies transplants into Britain better than anyone else that we've listened to, and seemingly like kind of the only band that's incorporated it into rock music. And so that kind
will
of
change quite a bit. Yeah,
but he's one of the first probably, right? And I think that's why this album speaks to me so much. It's pretty subtle how he does it. It's not straight up, just like reggae songs, but there's like certain guitar chords and things that I've heard through my days of listening to ska and reggae that I hear him do that take me back to a certain time and place. And he is also very good at just writing songs. His lyrics are really good. read the lyrics while I was listening to this album. I think that sets him kind of head and shoulders above some of the other artists at this time. And he just writes really good like pop song structures. They are really catchy. This album has a huge use of the organ, which is different from the first album. I think that makes it unique as well. And it's an organ that's used in like an effective, fun way. It's not grating. I feel like it kind of brings almost this choir gospel nature to it while not being gospel music. It just kind of reminiscent of that, and he incorporates it into his songs really well. I mean, we didn't use Pump It Up in the montage or the opening, but
right.
But that is just like a fantastic pop song. That's probably the most famous one on here, and it's fun to dance to, and I feel like that vibe carries throughout the album. His singing itself kind of reminds me of Bruce Springsteen at times, just in kind of his delivery, while not as Bruce kind of gets a little gravelly later on, but I think at the same time it's kind of comparable. It just reminds me of that for some reason, and his guitar playing is really stellar. I'm still trying to, for some reason, I have a hard time describing why I like his music. I haven't been able to narrow it down yet, exactly what appeals to me about him, but I really like this album.
So I liked My Name Is True quite a bit, but I think this album's even stronger than it, to be quite honest. This is from start to finish super strong, and it's very interesting contextualizing this album, because he's got a little bit musically of what the Clash do as well, in that he genre bends between different areas, right? So there's some new wave in here, there's some traditional pop, there's some reggae, there's, like Josh said, there's ska elements, and he flirts with there's even traditional singer-songwriter, right, guys? You can hear that a little bit along the way. I think what I stands out to me about Elvis Costello is that he writes really witty songs that are intellectual, but not in the way when someone really wants to show off how intellectual they are. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of just wanted to bring that up. And I think one of the main reasons why he's successful is because, as Josh said, of his pop songwriting sensibilities mixed with the variation of his music. You know what was very interesting as I listened to this, guys? I realized you always draw comparisons, right? And what I've been really drawing, and Josh, you drew some from the past. That's usually where I go. I started, though, to think of like the heritage of like what Elvis Costello's like sound led to, right? And all I could think of was different people that came later, singer-songwriter types like Rufus Wainwright came to mind immediately, and Matt, the guy you like, Frank Turner, right? Is in this vein. You know who also came to mind, though, maybe not sonically, is Rivers Cuomo, because I actually think sort of the vintage Weezer that people love, there's an element of how Rivers Cuomo wrote songs there, right, that were personal but detached at the same time to some degree, and had the pop sensibility even as he was morphing different genres. There's just an element there that I found myself going, there's a little bit of what Rivers Cuomo and Weezer, especially in like the Blue Album era, right, had that is present here as well. I was most impressed by the fact that this was 14 songs, I think, in total as an album. And I never got bored, and I never found songs that dragged me back. And I said, oh, they could have left that one out. Oh, they could have left that one out, or uneven. It was just strong from No Action, which I loved. And then The Beat at song number 3 was a song that I thought was awesome. Pump It Up is a classic single, right? And then Hand in Hand and I Don't Want to Go Chelsea go in a different direction with more of that ska sound, and then he's, by Lip Service and Living in Paradise and Lipstick Vogue, right? he's bringing in elements of new wave in that era, and then he ends with Radio Radio at the end, another single. And so there's just tracks spread all over this album that come from different angles. And I really appreciated his songcraft. I really appreciated the tightness of building to the choruses. It's almost Tom Petty-like, right? With building to choruses that are tight and snap off, with bridges, that there's not a lot untidy here, right? And it's hard to write songs that are untidy that don't also sound plastic, right? And he manages to write songs that are very tidy, but also still have the heart and emotion that makes you can resonate on an emotional level, right? And I think, to me, the two albums we've covered, that has really been Elvis Costello's gift. But I do think this represents a step up, because I think musically this is more varied. I like the collaborative effect that I think the Attractions might have had on this, bringing in different viewpoints as opposed to just more of like a singer-songwriter just, bringing along pieces, right? And in this case, I think they had their own view a little bit. And sort of while he might have directed the traffic, they brought their own feel to it. Kind of like with when Bowie, constructed these bands, right? They had their own playing style, but also, there was an overriding mission with stuff. And that's a little bit of what's going on here. But strong recommend. And I also think that this album easily moves out of the 70s, by the way, too, which is something I know Matt brings up quite a bit. And I do think it's potable outside of you can recognize it as a late 70s album because of some of the elements of new wave and some of the sound and the production. And certainly if you're familiar with what was going on in Great Britain in the late 70s, you can sort of tie in. Josh said it's the first time we're doing. We're going to cover the Police, we're going to cover the Clash, we're going to cover Two Tone, right? And all that stuff's going to bring in elements of it. This is the first time I think we're covering it here, outside of a couple tracks on the Clash's debut album, that really bring this to the forefront, outside of actual reggae acts or actual ska acts, which really, outside of Jimmy Cliff and Bob Marley, who are not really coming from an English perspective, right? They are still very much in the Jamaica standpoint at that point. And we really haven't done any ska at this point. So outside of a little bit on The Harder They Come, right? Desmond Decker, I think, was on there. So, this is a strong recommend for me. I really enjoyed this album.
So a couple things real quick before I get my take. So there was the Spotify version here actually has 14 tracks, but the original UK release only had 12. So the tagging on of Big Tears and Radio Radio are actually not part of the original record.
Part of the album, okay.
Yeah, so just as an FYI, I'm just learning that now.
Both
and then it was also one... Yeah, exactly. And it's also one of those things where there was like a UK release and a US release, so you've got that kind of thing going on as well. But anyway, so I knew My Aim Is True. That's an album that I had and I knew for a while. That was an album I was familiar with and I liked. Didn't really know this album at all. And I'm with you, John. This album was, I thought, God, as much as I like My Aim Is True, I found this much stronger overall. I thought this was a much more varied listen. I thought the production was better. Same thing with you guys on the different genres here. I really like, it's a lot of interesting stuff. I'm throwing power pop on there too, because there's some very songs like Lip Service and Hand in Hand have a very kind of more of a like almost like a 90s power pop vibe going on.
Like Adam Schlesinger, that's another person I thought of.
Yeah, the Fountains of Wayne guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of that lyric writing ability and crafting those like kind of things that John described in the structure.
Yeah. Jimmy Eat World's another band that delves into this territory too, I'd like to point out. If you've ever heard the album Bleed American and stuff, there's a little bit of this,
And I'm hearing there's a little bit of some jangle guitar in there too. So you got, so I think, Josh, if you're looking for reasons to like this, I just think you've got varied
I do like
genres. No, I mean, but you're like, I'm trying to figure out, you're trying to put words to it. And I just think, I agree. I think the songwriting is very strong. There's a ton of hooks in here.
Yes.
There's a ton of, this is a very, Josh, you talk about danceable records. This album has you going, like moving, very easily to get into it. I'm hand clapping in the kitchen stuff, that's very, it's just very catchy. The musicianship in here is really good too. If the opening of Lipstick Vogue with that kicking drum solo that kind of comes in, and and then the bass, like the really fast bass playing, the band is really fantastic, and they kind of take it to a different level. And I think the bass throughout this is really good. Like that kind of makes the pump it up, bass line there too. I'm throwing another genre in here. This is kind of a little bit, and it makes sense to some extent, because Pump It Up, Costello did say that was kind of ripping off Subterranean Homesick Blues by Bob Dylan, and the singing structure there. And on a song like that, and on a song like I Don't Want to Go to Chelsea, he's kind of rapping there. I mean, he's not really singing. He's just doing these, and it's obviously not rap.
That's
but
a little
done.
bit of a reach there, yeah.
But it's done. But if you listen to the way he's singing, clearly it's not a rap song. But I mean, he's not really singing there. He's kind of just like, throwing the words out in the rhyming kind of structure with the rhythm behind it. So it's a little bit of like a rap, I would say.
Do you consider that like U2 song where Bono's like, don't sleep, don't... Like, do you consider that rap, Matt?
No, that's too slow.
Like, you'd have
that's
to like
slow.
make the leap that you do if you consider that rap for U2, Or we're going to talk Blondie, right? And whether or not Debbie Harry raps on Rapture, right? That's another question right there. She at least got co-signed by Fab Five Freddy.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you can make the argument whether it's good or not, or like whether it's. And I'm not saying this is rap, but I'm saying there are elements to the way that he is, the vocals are going, that are reminiscent of that to an extent. I would say. And if you don't agree, you don't agree. But that's I was getting that.
You know what I think it might be a little bit more like, Matt, and so I kind of see what you're saying right now. So Elvis Costello was, he produced the Specials' first album, right? And there's like one or two tracks, I think most notably Ghost Town by the Specials, right? Where there's a guy who kind of does like a little bit of the speaking, like, this town is coming like a ghost town, like where it's more of a spoken and then there's somebody singing behind it. I wonder if that's a little bit in the reggae tradition, you know what I mean, where he's coming from.
Could be.
With that sound.
I just think with Pump It Up and with I Don't Want to Go to Chelsea, it's fast.
Yes.
It's and he's clearly going with the beat of the music, and there's a flow to it that is reminiscent somewhat. It's clearly not. He's not doing. He's not doing Juicy here. Or, or like he's not doing Dre or anything like that. But it's I found something reminiscent there. But anyway, I just thought there was great variety here. I thought the songs were really interesting. They were catchy. They were fun. I love his voice too. He's got like an attitude. There's a punk attitude with his, the anger. That's the other thing too with the Saturday Night Live thing. Even though he got banned, I mean, that's one of the things that started to sell My Aim Is True, right, and make him kind of like a little bit more of a interesting figure, as far as his publicity goes, because the guy got banned from Saturday Night Live, and then some people would go out and buy some, so that helped his sales too. So I love this record. I think the more I listened to it, the more I liked it, and I've always liked My Aim Is True, but this to me was a different level. This is him really honing his craft, and I can see why it's so highly regarded. So big thumbs up for me. Big fan of this album. I
agree, Matt. I would say this is because this came a year after, right? My Aim Is True?
70. Let me hang on a second. I can. So this was 78. Yeah. 77 was My Aim Is True. Yep.
Yeah, this was not a sophomore slump. This was a artistic evolution, I think.
And so is this your guys saying ska? If there's ska in here, I like this type of ska.
Dude, you're gonna like two-tone. The most shocking thing is gonna be when you don't get ahead of it, but I'm telling you, I think I'll be curious. I don't want to, because that'll be a fascinating episode when we get to like some of those bands. But yes, there's ska all over this album, Matt. Yeah.
That.
There's a significant amount. Yes, let's put it that way.
I agree too with what you said about. I think it is a timeless album in some way. It is so like pop centric and unique sounding, and because it genre bends so much that I think you could put this on anytime and people wouldn't necessarily know it was from the late 70s, and probably would appeal to a lot of people that don't really know Elvis Costello.
Yeah, and I think
so hard to write pop songs that have edge, and like I just, the few people that can do that it's a real gift, because a lot of people can write pop songs, right? But to do it and also have the edge to it that's a real gift. Yeah.
And I think one of the cool things about this genre bending is that it all just blends so well together, and sometimes it's just little hints of something. There's a little hint of that, and so I think that they do that really well, and he kind of makes it his own thing. So and the keys, the synths working here really well too. So it's like the Talking Heads. Like when you talk about blending these different types of sounds that ordinarily, particularly up until this point, haven't really gotten together, and when you see somebody do it or you hear somebody do it so seamlessly, and do it so well. It's awesome. It's a great record.
It's that syncretic. The Talking Heads is a good point, Matt, because while they don't sound exactly the same, they have similar like the Talking Heads come at it a little bit more art rocky and avant-garde, whereas this is more straight ahead. Mm-hmm. But that's a great analysis. Now, I do think there's a lot of elements of like what Tom Petty does, especially early Tom Petty in this, because he has that, where like Tom Petty can write a song that's like a real pretty pop song, but it's got more edge to it. Like, you know, Don't Come Around Here No More, or like You Got Lucky, right? Where the lyrics are kind of like, I Don't Want to Go to Chelsea, and songs like that. There's a little bit of ominousness in the songs, you know what I mean? And, that goes with that like glaring behind the camera, right? You know what I mean? Like, he can go sensitive guy, but he can also let you know he's angry and, even a little bit intemperate, you know what I mean? But it's covered under these very not sugary is the wrong pleasing sonic palettes.
It is. It's a pleasing album for sure.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. So I think 3's pretty strong thumbs up there. Anybody? I have a couple more tidbits here before we move on. Anybody have anything else to say?
No,
I don't know. Okay. I think I covered it.
So he goes on, and Costello plays with the Attractions for a while. There's some tumult. There's a little tumultuous nature to the interactions there, particularly with the bass player. But he kind of breaks the band up. Then he has another band called the Imposters, but then the Attractions come back, so there's a bunch of that going on. He did produce the Specials debut album in '79, so John's right about that, and he had an on-again, a couple of facts here that I just found interesting to kind of tie into other things. He had an on-again, off-again relationship with a woman by the name of Bebe Buell. Is that ringing a bell?
She's the super groupie, isn't she?
Yes, I think she is a super groupie. What else you got?
She had Liv Tyler's mother.
She is, yes. So Todd Rundgren's girlfriend and Liv Tyler's mother. So Elvis Costello had a thing with Liv Tyler's mom. He ended up actually marrying Diana Krall in 2003, an artist you might have heard of.
I don't know if I know who Diana Krall is.
Yeah, I think she's
another musician.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I forget exactly. I don't know a ton of her stuff, but I have heard of her before. I think that was his third wife, perhaps. If you want more Elvis Costello,
2 out of 3 ain't bad, Matt. 2 out of 3.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh gosh. If you want more of Elvis Costello, you could listen to one of his other 31 albums that he has out, and including his 32nd studio album that was released 12 days ago on January 14th. So he just had a new album released there. And also, John, if you're ever looking for extra albums to cover on Cold Lists and Hot Takes, Elvis Costello did a piece for Vanity Fair where he didn't rank them, but he listed his top 500 albums of all time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So included on there are artists all the way from Johann Sebastian Bach to Eminem. So talk about a variety there. That's Elvis Costello's top 500 albums. So,
and I think he is no stranger among those 31 albums, just going into completely different genres by himself. Like I know he made a New Orleans album at one point.
He's done stuff with Alan Toussaint and a lot of stuff there. Burt Bacharach,
country, I think some stuff too. So he's not afraid to try anything.
No.
Nice.